Cade Cunningham's goal this year should be to become universally recognized as a top 10 player in the NBA. In today's episode, I'll break down how he can get there. Locked On Pistons podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I am your host, Coop. I've been covering the Detroit Pistons for the last 4 years for the Locked On Network, been a credentialed media member over the last 3 years. I want to thank all of you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. In today's episode, we'll be discussing Cade Cunningham's season review. We have done now Jaden Ivey's, Jalen Duren's, we've done Asar Thompson's. Cade is next. In the future episodes, we'll split them up in segments. We'll start doing Tobias, Isaiah Stewart, Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert, guys like that, Marcus Sasser. We'll get into all of them, but for the main guys, they'll be getting full episodes. Ron Holland. The main guys will be getting full episodes, and today we'll be talking about Cade Cunningham's upcoming season. We'll discuss how he can take another jump offensively, especially efficiency-wise. We'll talk about what he needs to do defensively to reach the outcome I believe he can get to. But we're going to start off like we do with all the other episodes, with the way I do my season preview. We have to start with a little bit of a season review so we know where we're coming from. This past year, Cade Cunningham crushed all expectations. I have to assume he crushed any expectations any of you guys had, crushed my expectations. I honestly believe he may have crushed his own expectations. I believe he might have crushed his camp's expectations. This past year, he averaged 26 points a game, 9.1 assists, 6.1 rebounds. He made the All-NBA team. He reached his first All-Star game. He led the Detroit Pistons to the playoffs, ended their playoff win drought. And this is all coming from a year right after the Pistons had the worst season, arguably the worst season in NBA history, definitely the worst season in Pistons history, 1 year removed, and a lot of people questioning, is Cade the guy? Is this team going to reach the next height? Like, are they going to eventually have to go into another rebuild in a few years? Like, is this over with? Like, are the Pistons screwed? 1 year later, all of that's completely done on 180, and it's now, where can Cade reach? How far can the Pistons go this year? Can the Pistons win a first-round series? Can they be a top 4 seed in the East? It's done a complete 180, and it is primarily due to Cade Cunningham becoming that number 1 overall pick in front of everybody's eyes, becoming that face of the franchise for the Detroit Pistons, and securing himself, I believe, as a top 15 player in the NBA. Now, I believe that Cade Cunningham's goals, his main goal for this year, as I said in the cold open, it should be, I want to be universally recognized as a top 10 player. Not some people think I might be top 10. Some people might think I'm top 20. Some people might have me 20th. Some guys might have me 9th. He needs to have the goal of, I want everyone who watches basketball, who watches me play, I want them to come away saying, I am a top 10 player in the NBA, I am a first-team All-NBAer, and I'm going to be in MVP conversations for years to come. That's what his goal should be. Because if we look real quickly at Locked On's top 100 players, you see Cade comes in at number 15. I had him at around 13. I think I had him ranked 13th in the NBA. A lot of people I saw in a lot of different lists I've seen have had him around this 15 area. I'd say the more likely ranking I've seen him around is around 15 to 20. I'm obviously a little bit higher. I had him around 13th, but this is around the right area he's at. And just to refresh everybody, where Locked On's top 100 had ahead of him, they had KD at 11, LeBron at 12, Tyrese at 13, and Anthony Davis at 14. Right behind them, they had Evan Mobley, Kawhi Leonard, Devin Booker, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Jalen Williams. Cade's goal should be to jump Anthony Davis. I think he will jump Tyrese, obviously, because Tyrese is going to be out for the year. To jump LeBron, jump KD. These guys are getting older. They're reaching the back ends of their prime, reaching the back ends of the career. Cade should jump all of these guys and become a top 10 player in the entire NBA. And this past year, he made All-NBA third team. Try and make All-NBA first team this year. That should be his goal. Try to be in a top 7 MVP voting. Where was he this past year? I know he was in the top 10 in MVP voting because of how he was 7th this year in MVP voting. That's where he should be aiming to be every year moving forward. That should be his goals. His goals is to be recognized as a superstar, not just a star, not just a young face of the NBA. No, one of the faces of the NBA. One of the faces of the upcoming Team USA team, Olympic team. One of the faces in the future of the NBA. That's what Cade should be securing himself as. Securing himself as the best USA player in the league. That should be his goals this year. And I think he can reach it. It's going to be a little bit unorthodox, I think, at least with how I'm going to describe it here, how he can reach it. I don't think it's going to come from him being 31, 32 point per game scorer. I don't think that's where he needs to get to. I don't think Cade at his peak is a guy averaging 30 plus points a game. Maybe he gets there. Because last year going into the offseason, I said, okay, he averaged 22 a game this year. You probably want him to be like 24 and a half and 9 assists and just play good defense. That's like what you should expect from him. And then he blew past that and averaged 26 a game this year with 9 assists and 6 rebounds and improving his efficiency. So he blew my expectations last year out of the water. So maybe he does it again this year. I hope he does. But what I really am looking forward to get into with you guys is to really break down the main areas of his game that he has to get better at if he's going to reach here. Coming up, we'll talk about his offensive side of the ball. That's the main area. And I have 3 areas of the floor, 3 areas of his offensive game that has to take the next step in order for him to reach where I think he can get to this season. And then later on, we'll get into what I think he has to do defensively to separate himself from some of these other guys that play similar to him. So we'll break it down coming up. I'll go ahead and spoil it a little bit for you guys. We've talked about it a lot this year. We've talked about it a lot this offseason. And Cade has talked about it a lot. His finishing around the rim. We'll break it down even further coming up. The NFL season is here, and the Detroit Lions are coming off a big-time win against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry, what is going on with the fumbling, man? You're selling Lamar out here, but I'll take it. Lions fan over here. And FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to play. Player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays. So, if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet, and if it hits, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Again, that's FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet, get $300 in bonus bets with FanDuel. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. A little later on, we'll talk about Cade Cunningham's defense, get into that side of the ball, but we're going to start here with his offensive side of the ball. The main conversation around Cade Cunningham, not just this year, but through his entire career so far, one of the main conversations about him has been his efficiency. And if you are going to be a superstar in the NBA, you have to be an efficient player. You have to be an uber efficient player. If you want to just head back, let's look at, again, the top 100 from Locked On NBA, this top 20 chart right here. All of the players ahead of Cade are more efficient than him. Tyrese, more efficient. LeBron's more efficient. KD, one of the most efficient players we've ever seen. AD, I believe, actually, let me not say that about AD. Let me double check that. I believe Anthony Davis was still more efficient. I know AD's been more efficient throughout his career, but I know he was hurt this past year. Yeah, even still this past year, right, okay. Even this year, AD was more efficient than Cade Cunningham. Every player that's going to be seen ahead of him on this list, on any list you see, they're going to be more efficient than him. That is how Cade takes the next jump offensively. He has to reach another level of efficiency. And this past year was good signs. We'll go ahead and go through what it's looked like so far throughout his career. 50% true shooting as a rookie. Not great. And then the year obviously only played 12 games. Wasn't looking good though. 49 true shooting, but we all know that he was dealing with that injuries. His third year, he jumped to 54.6 true shooting. And then this past year, he had a career best 56.5 true shooting percentage. Now, how did he do that this past year? Well, I'm sure if you've listened to the podcast all year, you guys have probably heard about this. But I got to talk with Cade about this a little bit, and he credited a ton of this to his improved, I would say, maturity when it comes to his shot selection and the type of shots he's going after. Before this past year, let's go ahead and just break down the numbers. Before this past year, let's say his 30. Let's just take the 30, one with Monty Williams. That was probably the largest sample size that you would like to take. I'm not going to go all the way back to his rookie year. His third season in the NBA, 18% of his shots were on long twos. That was the 94th percentile in the NBA. There's very few players that took more long twos than Cade Cunningham. And long twos are just not an efficient shot. It's not a good shot. So Cade, coming into this year, completely changed that. He went from 18% of his shots taking from long two to down to 10% of his shots from long two. And how did he spread that out? If he's not taking as many long twos, what did he turn them into? Well, he turned them into more pull-up threes. He took more pull-up threes than he ever did this past year than he has at any point of his career. And then he also turned them into closer looks to the rim. This past year, he went from his third year, he shot 26% of his shots in the short mid-range area, like the little paint non-rim area where he gets those hook shots, he gets those floaters going. 26% of his shots were from that area. This past year, 35% of his shots were in the paint non-rim area. He dominated in that area. He changed the long twos and turned them into shorter twos and more pull-up threes and had his most efficient season of his career. He shot 49% on these short mid-range shots. That's in the 85th percentile. And of anybody that have that type of volume from that area, he was at the very top in efficiency. So he's already getting much better, or he already has gotten much better with his shot selection and how mature he is and how he attacks the offensive end of the floor. That's great. However, with that, what's holding him back from being a 60 true shooting guy, a 59 true shooting guy, an uber efficient player, an uber efficient heliocentric lead offensive engine is his finishing around the rim. This has been a problem for Cade throughout his career. And I do think if you want to talk about something that may be, yes, I'm holding a pencil. If you want to talk about one thing that may be like one area of the floor that is pretty concerning for like the Pistons in general is the rim. Like Cade struggles to finish at the rim. Jaden Ivey struggles to finish at the rim. Asar, when it's not a dunk, it's not the best finisher at the rim. Like all of their like main guys outside of Ron Holland. Ron Holland's the best finisher of all of them at the rim. When you take away dunks, which I don't like taking away dunks for big wings like Asar, Ron, Jalen Duren, obviously bigs because so many of their attempts will be dunks, but you should look at layups as well. My point is that is one area of the floor where it seems like the Pistons in general, their main guys are struggling at, but it's no different from Cade. Cade, this past year, shot 57% at the rim. The year before that, 56%. The year before that, 54%. The year before that, 58%. He has not been a good finisher throughout his career. The 57% from at the rim this past year ranks in the 30th percentile across the NBA. Cade had that big of a jump in efficiency while maintaining being one of, if we're just going to be real, of all the guys with that type of volume of drive to the rim, shots at the rim, because again, he ranked in the 72nd percentile in the amount of shots he took at the rim. When you talk about that type of volume on drive, shots at the rim, layups, he probably was one of the most inefficient guys in the league at those. And that's just being real. If Cade is going to be a lead offensive engine, which he is already, if you're going to be a heliocentric guy, which we'll see if Cade's always going to have the ball in his hands a lot. I think he's going to continue to do that. But we'll see this year. It'll be interesting to see if they try to move him off ball a little bit and try to get him some more off ball looks coming off some screens, some catch and shoot opportunities. We'll see if they try to do that. But if he's going to remain largely the player we've seen, which I think is probably the case, you cannot struggle to finish at the rim as much as he does. That can't happen. He has to improve his finishing at the rim. It's great that he improved from the short range area, that he added the floater to his game, something I talked with him about. I love seeing that. I love seeing him go to the post even more. He was the best post-up guard in the NBA this past year, and that's a big part of his game. It's a huge part of his game. this past year, he had 105 possessions as a post-up player. 105. That was the most of his career so far. The area that he has to improve is his finishing at the rim. And along with that, and I feel like this has been the talking point every offseason, is that another way he can improve his finishing at the rim is if he turns some of those looks into free throws. Now, some of the problem with his foul drawing, I feel like refs just don't like him. Like, they give him a terrible whistle. Do I think he gets a good whistle? Absolutely not. He gets a horrible whistle. However, with that said, Cade can still do more to sell those calls. Whether it's, I know people hate to hear this, but whether it's flopping or whether it's selling the contact is what I'd like to call it. Whether it's being more physical on his drives, ending off his drives with more physicality, going through defenders. Whether it's being more unique with how he gathers the ball. We've talked about it a ton. I've mentioned a ton that I like to see him use his rip through, a low rip through on his drives to get slaps on the arm and get those easy foul calls. And he started to do that more as the season went on, which was good to see. Turning some of those looks at the rim into free throws would be huge for him. Would be absolutely huge for him. This past year, he averaged 5.3 free throw attempts a game. That was the most of his career. If he can get that up to 6+ free throws a game, that would be absolutely huge for his efficiency. And then obviously we've been discussing, since we're talking about his efficiency, that was his biggest struggling point in the playoffs. Like he did not score the ball efficiently at all in the playoffs. He shot 38% in game 1. Game 2 played really well, 52%, but 40% game 3, 47% game 4, you'll take it, 35% game 5, and 40% game 6. Now, you watch the game and the amount of tension he had, and he didn't have anyone else to really take the ball out of his hands. Like, we understand why that was. Like, we give him grace. It's his first ever playoff appearance, and I think he largely looked pretty good. And I came away encouraged with how he played in the playoffs. But you're not going to get away with being the lead star, being that inefficient, I should say. So he has to take that next step. That's number one for me. The finishing at the rim. It vastly has to improve. The other area of his game is the consistency from beyond the arc. Cade rode so many up and downs when it came to his three-point shooting throughout the year this year. Let's just look at him by month, okay? In October, he's shooting 40% from 3. Then in November, he's shooting 36. December, he's down to 34. Then January, he's back up to 36. February, he's 36. Then he's back down to 30% in March. Then in April, shoots 41%. Now, that's on a very small sample size. What's even more fluctuating throughout the year that I was tracking, if you were listening to the podcast during the year, was his pull-up three-point shooting. He starts the year, the first 2.5 months of the year, he was around 36% on pull-up threes. It was great. I was absolutely loving it. Then over the next month and a half or so, that dropped to around, he was shooting 30% over the next few months. Then his overall season dropped to around 32% on pull-up threes. That's not where you need to be. Now, I like the fact that he increased his volume on that. That was great to see. And he had very high moments. He had some games when he was playing really, or shooting the ball really well off the dribble from beyond the arc. And that's something he did at Oklahoma State. And that's something that Ashton has told us on the podcast before. Cannon has told us on the podcast before, his brother and his trainer, if you don't know who that is. That it's something that they know that he has to improve on, that they worked on all last summer. And you saw it work out in at times, and then you saw, okay, it still needs to be a work in progress. Sometimes it was great, sometimes it wasn't. He has to become more consistent as a three-point shooter throughout a season. And I think that has something to do with his conditioning level. Trajan Langdon talked about this after the year. He mentioned that his conditioning level has to get better, and now instead of training to make it through an 82-game season, he needs to be training for getting through a full playoffs, getting through 82 games and then being ready to be at tip-top shape in the playoffs. And that's something he will work on. So I do think at times it looked like Cade was getting tired throughout the season with the amount of load that he had to carry for the Pistons. I get it. But when you have that kind of responsibility, you have to be in better shape. You have to be ready to do it. That can't be an excuse moving forward every single time. Has to be in better shape. I think he will be in better shape, be ready to handle it. I do think that will help his legs on these pull-ups, and I think he'll shoot a little bit more consistently from three, even if it's just consistently around 36%. What they can't have is the months where he's shooting 29, 30%, then he's back up to 40. You need it to be consistently impactful. And then obviously people are going to, I know the comments and a lot of fans are going to say, well, you haven't mentioned his turnovers. Yes, the turnovers need to be cut down. They do. I'm not making excuses for him. All I'm saying is all high usage guys are going to turn the ball over a ton. Again, he went overboard this year with 4.5 turnovers a game. That's ridiculous. But like all he needs to do for me is get down to like 3.6 turnovers a game, cut it down by like 0.7 turnovers a game, and then I'll deal with it. Like all of the top turnover guys are going to be guys who have the ball in their hands the most. Like it's going to happen. And we've talked about this before, is that there's a line you just can't cross. You can be aggressive and you just turn the ball over. I mean, it comes with it. But there's a line you can't cross when you have these lackadaisical turnovers and you turn it over 5 times a game. That's ridiculous. So he did cross the line this year. He has to improve it. I think a lot of people are expecting him to get like 2 turnovers a game, and that's just not going to happen with how much he has the ball in his hands. He's always going to be a 3+ turnover guy. If he gets underneath 3 turnovers, I would be absolutely shocked. But yeah, he does have to improve it. It's just not one of my top improvements for him. Like if he turned the ball over a ton, but he's shooting 60+% at the rim, he's drawing 6+ free throws a game, and he's shooting 38% from 3. Like, okay, that's fine. I'll take 4 turnovers a game. Then we'll work on it next summer. Like that's how I feel about it. So let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. Do you guys agree, disagree with why I believe he has to work on offensively? Is there anything else that I didn't mention that you'd like to see him improve offensively? Let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. Coming up, this is where I think Cade separates himself from all of the other offensive engines in the NBA. His defense will break it down coming up. So I want to thank you guys again. Make Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel @Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so this is when I mentioned earlier that it might be a little unorthodox with how I believe Cade reaches top 10. This is what I was talking about. You look at all those guys you look at all the players, I should say, in the NBA. There are offensive engines, heliocentric players. You look at, let's go back, you can go even back to James Harden, obviously. But let's stay with now, because I know when you say heliocentric, first thing people think of is James Harden with the Rockets. But let's look at Jalen Brunson. You look at Luka Doncic. Who else would be a good one now? I mean, LeBron kind of at this stage, even though he's playing with Luka now, so he won't be as heliocentric. But LeBron, like the last few years, has fallen off a little bit defensively. Then you just look at the offensive heavy guys, the guys who are great offensive players, guys like Tyrese Halliburton, not very good defensively. Donovan Mitchell, not very good defensively. You go down the list, these offensive stars in the NBA, most of them are not very good defensively. And the ones who are also great defensively, a Giannis, a Jason Tatum, those are the guys who talk about top 5 in the NBA. You talk about top 3 in the NBA. SGA, really good defender. Yeah, I think he gets slightly overrated, but I still think SGA is a good defender. I saw some people believe that he was like all defensive caliber. I think I think SGA is getting a little overrated with that, but he is a good defender nonetheless. He is. My overall point is that the ones who are able to impact on both ends are the ones you talk about in the top 5. The only one who isn't is Jokic, and that's because he's arguably the greatest offensive player we've ever seen in our lives. So Cade is the unique guy, I believe, that can be a heliocentric offensive engine like Luka, James Harden, Jalen Brunson. I think he can be that. I don't think he will reach their level of efficiency at that. I don't think he will reach their peak outcome scoring-wise. Like James Harden was averaging 37 at one point. Luka's like 32, 30, whatever. Like I don't think Cade's going to get to 32 points a game in his career. I don't think he'll reach quite that peak scoring output, but I think he'll play a similar style. I think he will have the similar kind of impact playmaking-wise. The difference for Cade will be is that, okay, we'll take the slight decrease in scoring peak outcome, but his floor and what he's going to bring defensively is something that all of those guys I've named just are incapable of doing. You look at what he did in the playoffs. Cade, that is. Had a game with 4 blocks. Ended the playoffs with 8 blocks. Had 11 steals in 6 games. He was averaging over 3 stocks a game. He's one of the best weak side rim protecting guards in the NBA. When you talk about weak side rim protecting guards in the NBA right now, you come and think of Derek White, Cade Cunningham, the Thompson twins, Jalen Suggs. I know I'm missing some guys out there. I know I'm missing some, but like those are the names that immediately come to my head. There's a few other ones I know I'm forgetting right now that deserve a shout out here. But like that's the company that he's in. He's a very good weak side rim protector for his position when he is engaged. And when it comes to guarding at the point of attack, he is not very good, Cade, at guarding smaller guys. He's not. Or let me change that a little bit. Guys like Jalen Brunson, I feel like he's better at guarding because Brunson isn't trying to beat you with speed. He's trying to beat you with strength. And Cade can, he's going to be just as strong as Jalen Brunson. Like, that's not going to be a problem. So guys of that archetype, he can handle. It's when you try to put him on guards that are quick, fast. He's not fast enough for that. My point with that is he's a good point of attack defender, on-ball defender, I should say, not point of attack. Good on-ball defender against wings. When he's able to guard wings, he's a good defender on them. He brings weak side rim protection. He correctly rotates. He knows where to be on the defensive end of the floor. The only thing with Cade is that during the season, it was up and down a little bit. Some games you were getting that consistent level of effort, and then some games you saw that he just wasn't giving that same type of effort. And then in the playoffs, you saw him peak effort every single game on the defensive end, on the glass, securing defensive stops, which is huge for a guy at his position, being able to go out, not only be, like I said, a good defender on wings, be a guy who can check Mikal Bridges, check OG Anunoby, switch onto a Jalen Brunson if need be, and also protect the rim as a weak side guard, but he also is able to come down and when Jalen Duren, like we talked about with the Sar Thompson, when Jalen Duren goes and chases a shot, he has a guy like Cade who comes out and will secure defensive stops. When Cade was doing that in the playoffs, you saw how impactful the Pistons defense was. And you saw how impactful he was on the Pistons defense. If Cade, I'm not expecting him to give that type of effort throughout the entire season. You're not going to really see most guys give that type of effort throughout a season that you would see in the playoffs. Playoffs is just a different energy. And I know people hate to hear that. I honestly hate to hear it, but that's just the fact of the matter. You're not going to get that type of play intensity until the playoffs come around. I wish it would change, but it's probably not. But what you can get is consistent effort all season long, good defense from Cade throughout the regular season to where, yes, maybe this season you don't walk away saying, oh, well, Cade was one of the 5 best offensive players in the NBA. Maybe you don't walk away saying Cade's one of the 8 best scorers in the NBA this year because of his efficiency. Maybe he doesn't get to 28 points a game. Maybe that isn't the case. But he can be a top 10 to 12 scorer, top 10 to 12 offensive scorer in the NBA. And then also, of those top 10 to 12 scorers, he'll be one of only 5 that are actually good defenders and impactful on that end. And that's where he will separate himself. And that's how he gets to being a top 10 player in the NBA this year and how he becomes one of the faces of the NBA and one of the faces of USA-born basketball players, the Olympic team in a few years. That's where Cade should be looking for. That's what his goals should be this upcoming year. And I believe he can hit all of these. And if last year is anything, I should be expecting him to even blow those expectations out of the water because he blew my expectations out of the water last summer. So let me know, comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. You guys agree, disagree that Cade can be a top 10 player this year? And how does he get there? Let me know all that, comment section down below or over on Twitter @KukaHill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there, and peace out, everybody.